which can be, if it is submucosal leiomyoma, you have to write it as SM. If it is others, like intramural fibroids, subserosal fibroids, or cervical fibroids, you call it as O. So leiomyoma is AUBL. Again, it is divided into SM is submucosal, O is others. Then M is for malignancy and endometrial hyperplasia. Endometrial malignancy and endometrial hyperplasia. Then COIN is, C is for coagulopathic disorders, O is for ovulatory dysfunction. Then E is for endometrial causes, I is iatrogenic, N is not yet identified. In this PALM COINS classification, PALM indicates structural causes, whereas COIN indicates non-structural causes. So these structural causes are discrete in nature, which can be measured visually with imaging techniques and by histopathology. So these polyps you can see by hysteroscopy, and by ultrasound you can identify these polyps. Adenomyosis also can be identified by ultrasonogram and leiomyoma also. Whereas malignancy and hyperplasia can be identified by, they can be diagnosed by histopathological examination. Whereas non-structural causes, that is COIN, COEIN, COIN, they are not defined by imaging or histopathology. We require other investigations to diagnose those conditions. For example, coagulopathies, they can be diagnosed by coagulation profile and estimating the factor 8 in von Willebrand's disease, like that. Then in ovulatory dysfunction, we require estimation of the hormones. And endometrial causes, endometrial biopsy. Then iatrogenic causes, whether she is from the history, and also whether she has used any contraceptive devices and all, you have to take the history. Not defined means some rare causes which does not fit into any of this group is So So in continuation, who described palm coins classification? It is Figo. Figo has described this palm coins classification for unification of terminology, and this was came into use. This has described this palm coins classification in the year 2010, but it came into use worldwide after acceptance by ACOG in the year 2013. So palm coins classification is only 10 years old. Okay. So in the 2010, it was first described by Figo and accepted by ACOG in 2013. So what is the main purpose of this palm coins classification is to standardize the terminology, investigations, diagnosis and management of AUB in reproductive age group after excluding pregnancy and related causes. You please concentrate here. This palm coins classification is applicable only for AUB in the reproductive age group. It is not applicable for pubertal age group, perimenopause, postmenopausal age group. It is applicable only for AUB in the reproductive age group. So because in many countries, many people in the say in one country only, in different states, we may be using different terminology like excessive bleeding or hypomenorrhea, polymenorrhea. So it is causing difficulty in statistics. So for unification of all these to standardize the terminology, investigations and management, this came into effect. So coming to how to document or write AUB according to palm coin. So how to document AUB? So this AUB this palm coins documentation can be by two methods. Please remember, if you have identified polyps are there, you can write AUB-P. Or if she is having adenomyosis, you can write AUB-A. So this A stands for adenomyosis. Or otherwise, you can write all PALM, palm coin in capital letters. And if that polyps is present, you put one under the P. Then it signifies that it is polyp. And adenomyosis is absent, no? So you put 0 under that one. L is 0. Leiomyoma is not there. So 0. Like that, you can write in two ways. Then PALMCOEIN, and you put whatever etiological condition is there, 1 under that one, and 0 and 0 for the conditions which are not there. That is one method of writing. Other method is you write AUB and the letter, whichever etiological condition, that letter applies to that etiology. That is P, polyps are there, you write P. Or endometrial malignancy, carcinoma is there, you write M. Like that, in two ways you can write palm coins nomenclature. So if multiple etiologies are there, that is the same woman is having submucous fibroid, endometrial hyperplasia and coagulopathy, then how will you write this palm coin? So she is having submucous fibroid. Submucous fibroid comes under leiomyoma, so it comes under L. You can write P0, A0, L1, that is leiomyoma is present. Then it is submucous fibroid. So you have to write in small letters SM. SM. Then she is having endometrial hyperplasia also. So it comes under M. So M1 you should write. And she is also having coagulopathy. So C1 under C. Then for ovulatory disorders, iatrogenic, endometrial and N, 0 you have to write. Otherwise, you can write AUB dash leiomyoma, capital L, under that one SM, then MC, you can write both the ways. One of you can write in the chat box, how will you write this one? Then write the diagnosis for AUB with adenomyosis and endometrial carcinoma. You please write, some of you please start writing in the chat box. Write the diagnosis for AUB with adenomyosis and endometrial carcinoma by this palm coins. How will you write palm coins? So adenomyosis means PA. Under A you write 1. Endometrial carcinoma is M, no? So under M you put 1. Rest of all, for the rest of all the letters you put 0. Otherwise AUB dash AM. That also signifies she is having adenomyosis and endometrial carcinoma. The other question is, write the diagnosis for AUB with intramural fibroids, endometritis, Copperty IUCD and AV malformations. So you should know under which condition these will fall. Intramural fibroids means leiomyoma, L1O. Because it is intramural fibroid, you have to write O. Endometritis, it comes under endometrial causes. Okay. Then Copperty IUCD, iatrogenic causes. AV malformations comes under not yet identified. So is it clear? You please practice, then you can understand. So how to write the intramural fibroids and palm coins classification? Under palm coins classification, intramural fibroids means PALMCOEIN. Under L, you have to put 1. That is, she is having fibroids. Then you put O. That is, she is having other types of fibroids. You have to write like that. Whereas myometrial hypertrophy or myometrial hyperplasia comes under N. That is not yet identified. So under N, you have to put 1. So here you can see this woman is having fibroids and myohyperplasia, endometrial carcinoma. So they have written P0A0 under L1 and it is submucous fibroid. They have written SM under the within the brackets and M is 1 and 0 for all these things. So here you can see this woman is having endometrial polyps, adenomyosis. So they have written like this. Then here she is having polyps and also fibroids, which is a subserous fibroid. So it comes under others. It is not submucosal. So they have written O. Here you can see she is having adenomyosis and also fibroids, that is subserosal fibroids, and also she is having coagulopathy. So whichever condition is having, you have to put 1 under that and 0 under the rest of the etiologies. So what do you mean by primary, secondary and tertiary classification of fibroids in palm coins classification? So in this palm coins classification, there is fibroids, they can be classified under 3 headings: primary, secondary, and tertiary classification. Primary classification means the fibroid is, if the fibroid is present, you will put 1 under L. If it is absent, you will put 0 under L. That is primary classification. Then if the fibroid is already present, it can be submucosal or others. That is called as secondary classification. If it is a submucosal fibroid, you put SM within the brackets by the side of 1. If it is others, that is other type of fibroids, that is intramural fibroids, you have to write O. O stands for others, other types of fibroids. Then what is tertiary classification? Can anybody tell what is tertiary? What is the name of the tertiary classification of fibroids and palm coins? It is called as Worm-Steker system of classification. This is Worm-Steker system of classification, where they are classified into, fibroids are classified into 8 types depending upon the position of fibroids. Basically, all fibroids starts as intramural fibroids, and depending upon the growth towards the endometrium or towards the peritoneum, they will become submucosal fibroids or subserous fibroids. So 0 means 0, 1 and 2 are submucosal fibroids. 3 to 8 are intramural fibroids. Here 0 means pedunculated intracavitary fibroids. So if the fibroid is intracavitary and pedunculated subserosal, submucosal, it is called as, it is 0. Tertiary classification, it is given the number 0. 1 means So 1 means it is submucosal fibroid where more than 50, less than 50% is, it is more than 50% is intramural. Sorry, a submucosal fibroid where less than 50% of the growth is intramural. That is, most of it is within the cavity. So it is less than 50% intramural. Then you call it, then you given the score of 1. Then 2 means more than 50% is intramural. More than 50%. This is more than 50% is intramural and it is submucosal. It is 2. Then 3 is, it is 100% intramural, but it is attached to the endometrium. So 3 is intramural, 100% intramural fibroid with which is impacted onto the endometrium is 3. 4 is 100% intramural fibroid which is not attached to either endometrium or to the peritoneal surface. Then 5 is subserosal fibroid with more than 50% intramural. 6 is subserosal fibroid with less than 50% intramural. Whereas 7 is subserosal pedunculated fibroid is 7. 8 is other types like cervical fibroids, parasitic fibroids or wandering fibroids. What is the difference between parasitic fibroids and wandering fibroids? What do you understand by parasitic fibroids? What do you mean by cervical fibroids? If the fibroids are present in the cervix, we call it as cervical fibroids. These cervical fibroids can, depending upon the situation, they can be anterior, which are when it is present in the anterior lip, posterior, if they are present in the posterior lip, or central, that is all around. If it is present, they are called as central cervical fibroids. What do you mean by parasitic fibroids? What do you mean by wandering fibroids? If these pedunculated subserous fibroids gets detached, this stalk gets detached, and if it is attached to one vascular structure like colon and gets its blood supply, then it is called as parasitic fibroids. When it is not attached to any organ and it is wandering in the peritoneal cavity, we call it as wandering fibroids. So this is palm sticker system of classification. Whenever you are writing palm coins classification, you may get a 4 marks question, right? Palm coins classification, you must be able to write this also to get good marks. Just a recap of terminology. What are all we have used is all the terminology, all the terms, that is hypomenorrhea, hypermenorrhea, menorrhagia, metrorrhagia, AUB, then functional uterine bleeding, all these terms were gone. We should not use any term like dysfunctional uterine bleeding, functional uterine bleeding, hypermenorrhea, hypomenorrhea, menorrhagia, menometrorrhagia, all these terms we should not use. Only the terms we can use are acute AUB, chronic AUB, then heavy menstrual bleeding, HMB and IMB. Only these 4 terms you can use. Okay. So coming to each one. So coming to polyps. So how to write polyps? AUBP, like this you can write, or P1 0 under all these things you can write. These polyps are endometrial polyps, not cervical polyps. You remember, these endometrial polyps are epithelial proliferations arising from the endometrial stroma or glands, and 57 to 60% of AUBs will have this AUB polyps. So the patient may be asymptomatic, or the patient may complain of intermenstrual bleeding. That is, with regular cycles, she may complain of bleeding in between the cycles. So she presents with metrorrhagia. So this woman will present with metrorrhagia. The diagnosis is by transvaginal sonogram, because pelvic ultrasound is better than abdominal ultrasound, and sonosalpingogram, that is, they keep the ultrasound probe over the abdomen, and through a catheter they will instill water, and they will see the how the endometrium is there and any hyperlucent areas are there or not. That is called as sonosalpingography. Then hysteroscopy is direct visualization by passing a endoscope through the cervical canal. Directly they visualize the endometrial cavity, uterine cavity, that is hysteroscope. So polyps can be diagnosed by transvaginal sonogram, sonosalpingography and hysteroscopy. Treatment of polyps is hysteroscopic polypectomy, that is resection of the polyps. So this is, here you can see a polyp, pedunculated polyp, that is, it has a stalk, pedunculated polyp at the fundal region. Here it is sessile polyp, that is, it has no stalk. So this is the polyp at the fundal region. How can you differentiate a endometrial polyp from a submucous fibroid? By histopathological examination. So these polyps contain only endometrial glands, whereas if it is a submucous fibroid, it will have muscular tissue, myometrium, it will have myometrium. So if the polyp is arising from the cervix, it is cervical polyp. How to differentiate a cervical polyp from the endometrial polyps? This is also one common question. Cervical polyps will be light pink in color, whereas endometrial polyps will be bright red in color. And cervical polyps, the surface is smooth and glistening. The glistening is because of the mucus secretion from the cervical glands, whereas endometrial polyps will be red. They will be bright red in color and the surface is rough. And if it is a cervical polyp, if you try to pass a sound, uterine sound all around, you cannot pass the sound all around. That is called as probe test. So by probe test, the sound cannot be passed all around. But if it is an endometrial polyp, if it is coming from here and you are seeing the polyp, you can pass the probe all around. That is called as probe test. So by ultrasonogram, if you do a scan, this is the uterine wall and you are seeing hyperlucent cavity. So it may be endometrial hyperplasia or endometrial polyps. So by scan, we cannot differentiate endometrial polyps or endometrial hyperplasia. But the same patient, if you do sonosalpingogram, that is through the cervical canal, they have instilled the water and they are seeing under the high illumination. So these are polyps, but not endometrial hyperplasia. So you can differentiate polyps from fundal fibroids. So this is hysteroscopic. Directly they are visualizing the interior of the uterine cavity where they are seeing a pedunculated fibroid. So what is the treatment for recurrent endometrial polyps? So for polyps, the treatment is hysteroscopic polypectomy or hysteroscopic resection of the polyps. If the patient is getting recurrently the same complaint, she is getting recurrent endometrial polyps, we may go for, if she completed her family size and age is more than 35 years, you can plan for hysterectomy, or otherwise the cause for this endometrial polyps is endometrial hyperplasia because of endometrial hyperplasia. So they can use Mirena, progesterone containing IUCDs they can use. If the histopathological examination report comes as malignancy, it has to be treated like endometrial carcinoma. So coming to adenomyosis, you have to write it as AUBA. In the palm coin under A, you have to put 1. If for the rest of this 0, you have to write it. This, what is adenomyosis? Presence of ectopic endometrial tissue in the myometrium is adenomyosis. So the patient will be in the reproductive age group of less parity, and patient will have complaints like dysmenorrhea, excessive menorrhagia, and also dyspareunia she will be having. And on examination, uterus will be enlarged, but not more than 14 week size, and uterus will be tender. So those are the specific features of adenomyosis. Diagnosis is by ultrasound. You can differentiate adenomyosis from fibroids, and MRI is for confirmation of diagnosis. Treatment is depending upon the age. You can use for symptomatic treatment, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, progestogens, OC pills, or Mirena you can use. Or if the age parity and she completed her family size and does not want to retain the uterus, you can go for hysterectomy. So this is, what is this? This is adenomyosis. You are seeing these punctate-like lesions within the myometrium. How to differentiate the cut section of the adenomyosis and fibroid? The fibroids will have old appearance. So coming to leiomyoma. So this leiomyomas under primary classification, if fibroid is present, 1. If it is a submucous fibroid, you write SM. If it is other types, that is other than submucous fibroids, you write 0. Then tertiary classification, if you know well and good, from 0 to 8, that is Worm-Stecher's classification of subclassification of fibroids. So here you can see it is pedunculated submucous fibroid. Then here it is submucous fibroid less than 50%, more than 50% is intramural. So it is 1. If it is more than 50% intramural, it is 3. Here it is completely intramural and touching the endometrium. This is cervical fibroid. This is subserous fibroid with more than 50% intramural. Here, subserous fibroid less than 50% intramural. This is pedunculated subserous fibroid. So you practice this Worm-Stickers classification. You write 1 or 2 times, you will remember. So diagnosis of fibroids is treatment. It's covered. It will be covered in fibroid topics. So coming to M, you can write AUBM or you put 1 under the M. This is for endometrial malignancy and endometrial hyperplasia. So what is the cause for this endometrial malignancy or endometrial hyperplasia? It is hyperestrogenism, because under the influence of estrogen, there will be hyperplasia, and with the neoplastic changes, it will turn into endometrial carcinoma. This endometrial hyperplasia you may get as a 4 marks question. So this endometrial hyperplasia can be of 4 types. They are simple hyperplasia without atypia, then simple hyperplasia with the atypia, then complex hyperplasia without atypia and with atypia. It is very easy to remember. Broadly, endometrial hyperplasia can be simple hyperplasia or complex hyperplasia. Then this can be without atypia and with atypia. So those are things. So if it is a simple hyperplasia without atypia, it is seen in anovulatory cycles. Anovulatory cycles are seen in PCOD, hypothyroidism, hyperprolactinemias, like that. Whereas if it is complex hyperplasia without atypia, it is called as adenomatous hyperplasia. So in this adenomatous hyperplasia, we see overcrowding of the glands which are closely opposed with some neoplastic P10 mutations. Then complex hyperplasia with atypia means this is called as complex adenomatous hyperplasia with atypia, where there is overcrowding of the glands and cytological atypia will be there. So what is the importance of knowing the histopathological examination and classifying this endometrial hyperplasia means, if it is simple hyperplasia without atypia, the risk of malignancy is less than 1%. If it is simple hyperplasia with atypia, the risk of malignancy is 3%. For complex hyperplasia without atypia, it is 9%. Risk of malignancy is 9%. Complex hyperplasia with atypia, risk of malignancy is 23%. It is very easy to remember. Less than 1%, 3%, 9 and 23%. So if you get the histopathology examination as simple hyperplasia without atypia, risk of malignancy is less than 1%. So you can give progestogens and you can reassure the woman that she does not need a hysterectomy and chances of malignancy is only less than 1%. Whereas if you get a HPE report as complex hyperplasia with atypia, risk of malignancy is 23%, and you have to advise hysterectomy, because if you don't do hysterectomy, 1 in 4 women will develop endometrial carcinoma. So you prepare a notes for this endometrial hyperplasia. So M stands for malignancy or hyperplasia, which may cause postmenopausal bleeding also, which will be dealt later. Then we have covered the structural abnormalities under POM-COIN. Then coming to non-structural defects in the POM-COIN's classification, that is COIN, C-O-E-I-N. So C is coagulopathies. The coagulopathies may be due to clotting factor deficiencies, which we see in liver diseases. These are all clotting factors are synthesized by liver. So if the patient is having any liver disease, she will land up with clotting factor deficiency. Or sometimes there may be congenital deficiency of these factors as seen in von Willebrand's disease. Or it may be due to platelets deficiencies, that is thrombocytopenia, which may be seen in ITP or aplastic anemias. Sometimes the count may be normal, but platelets functional defects may also cause clotting disorders. So how to diagnose these clotting disorders, coagulopathies? Only by blood tests and estimating this clotting factors. So the treatment of this coagulopathy is by tranexamic acid, OC pills, progestogens, and hematologist may specify specific factor therapy. That is von Willebrand's factor, von Willebrand's disease. You can give injections of factor 8 like that, specific factor therapy. And endometrial ablation also works well because the bleeding surface is ablated. So coming to ovulatory disorders, O, coin O. That is ovulatory disorders. You have to write it as AUBO and put one under O. Then common cause of AUB is, it is the common cause of AUB is so in the pubertal age group, because of immature hypothalamo-pituitary ovarian axis, they will have anovulation and AUB. In the perimenopausal age group also, it becomes irregular. Then anovulatory cycles are seen in case of PCOD, hypothyroidism, hyperprolactinemias, any stress, obesity, marked obesity, anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, acute weight loss, acute weight gain, or excessive exercise. Because we see athletic women, they suffer with this ovulatory disorder and come with amenorrheas. Then luteal phase defects. Sometimes the woman may be having ovulation. Ovulation is occurring, but this because of progesterone deficiency, they will have AUB. So that is also one type of ovulatory disorders, comes under AUBO. These are called as luteal phase defects. So how to diagnose these luteal phase defects? If you do endometrial biopsy, there will be dating, no? So that is on the 16th day of cycle, menstrual cycle, the endometrium should be in one phase. But if you take the biopsy on 16th day, there will be 2 days, more than 2 days lag. That is, it looks like 14th day of the cycle. Then you call it as luteal phase defects or loop events, luteal out of phase events. These anovulatory AUB is, otherwise previously we used to call it as DUB. So how anovulation causes abnormal uterine bleeding. How it causes abnormal uterine bleeding? In anovulatory cycles, there is no progesterone because corpus luteum is not formed. So there is no progesterone. So only under the influence of estrogen, the endometrium will be layered in multi-layers. That is, there will be endometrial layering. And till how much time this layering will occur? It will reach certain thickness till the superficial layers does not get blood supply from the base. So as the superficial layers does not get blood supply, there is avascular necrosis and shedding. So these people with anovulation will have prolonged periods. That is, they will complain of periods occurring at a duration of 45 to 60 days, and that bleeding is also prolonged. They bleed for 15 to 20 days. Like that, they will have the history. How will be the cycle pattern? They will have prolonged cycles and they will have prolonged bleeding. The diagnosis can be made by history and exclusion of other structural causes. Then treatment of this anovulation is, we have to supplement with progestrogens or OC pills. Then in hypothyroidism also, you can see in hypo and hyperthyroidism also, you can, they will have anovulatory cycles. How it will cause anovulation means high levels of thyroid releasing hormones. They cause high levels of prolactins. So This hyperprolactinemia will leads to anovulation. So this luteal phase defects, LPD, that is luteal phase lasts for, usually the luteal phase or secretory phase has to last for 14 days under the influence of progesterone. But here, though the ovulation has occurred, it lasts for only 7 to 10 days. And inadequate peak luteal phase progesterone will be there. That is, if you estimate the serum progesterone levels, it will be less than normal. It is around 4 to 8 nanograms per ml. And she will be having polymenorrhea, that is for every periods for every 2 weeks. She will have bleeding for 7 days, and at a gap of 2 weeks, she will get another cycle. That is because of short secretory phase. And if you take the endometrial biopsy, it is 2 days out of phase. That is what I have explained. That is, if you take biopsy on 16th day, the endometrial biopsy looks like on 14th day. That is 2 days out of period, out of phase, they say. So coming to AUBE, that is endometrial defects. Like endometrium, at the local endometrium, the bleeding will be controlled by a local endometrial hemostatic mechanism. That is, at the level of endometrium, there is secretion of prostaglandins. As I have already told you, there will be vasodilators and vasoconstrictors. The vasodilators are PG The vasodilators are PGF2 or prostacyclins and thromboxane A2, whereas vasoconstrictors are endothelin 1 and prostaglandin F2 alpha. So there should be a balance in between these two to control the bleeding. So if there is a disturbance or dysfunction in this local endometrial hemostasis, it is called as endometrial AUBE. So where there is, if there is increased synthesis of plasminogen activator, there will be increased fibrinolytics and this clot will be lysed. So this is also one cause for AUBE. This AUBE endometrial dysfunction is seen in case of endometrial infection, that is endometritis. So in endometritis comes under AUBE. So this endometritis is seen in immediate postpartum and post-abortal and in case of pelvic inflammatory diseases. So immediately after the delivery and after abortions, for 2 to 3 cycles, they will have excessive bleeding. They will come with excessive bleeding. It is nothing but endometritis. It comes under AUBE. So coming to iatrogenic causes. So the iatrogenic causes means doctor induced causes, like if the patient is on exogenous steroid therapy like low dose OC pills, or if this progesterone is not sufficient, the patient will have breakthrough bleeding. Whereas IUCD itself can cause menorrhagia because it is a foreign body, or some drugs like anticoagulant drugs like warfarin, heparin, phenothiazines, tricyclic antidepressants, opiates like morphine, codeine, pethidines, they will cause AUB. Then what is post-tubal ligation syndrome? So after the woman undergoes tubectomy, around 15% of the patients will come with abnormal uterine plateau. This is because while ligating the uterine tubes, they will be disturbing the blood vessels in the mesosalpinx. So blood supply to the ovary will be disturbed and there will be congestion of the ovaries. So this will cause AUB in the after tubal ligation. So this is called as post-tubal ligation syndrome, and this comes under iatrogenic causes of AUB. So the treatment of this is, if the patient is on any anticoagulant drugs, you stop the drug, and if the patient is having IUCD, you remove it. And these drugs, anticoagulant drugs, in the therapeutic doses, they won't cause abnormal uterine bleeding. So dose adjustment will cure that condition. So coming to the last one, that is N. N is not yet classified. So it includes rare causes like AV malformations, myometrial hypertrophy or myometrial hyperplasia, chronic endometritis, or endometrial pseudoaneurysms like varicose veins of uterine vessels and Caesarean scar defects. So these are some rare conditions which will present with AUB, but these cannot be diagnosed by our routine investigations. So we put under these not yet identified criteria. So if in future with some updated or new versions of investigations, we can put under these under another classification. What do you mean by venous malformations? In arteriovenous malformations may be abnormal communication between the arteries and veins of the pelvic structures, or there may be varicose veins. So treatment of this is uterine artery embolization and sclerotherapy. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. You read the textbook, short textbook, and you write the definitions of the terminology we use. Though FIGO, nowadays we should not use those old terminology, but in exams they will definitely ask you define menorrhagia, define hypomenorrhea, polymenorrhea, what are the causes for that, like that they will definitely ask you. Then Palm-Coins classification you must know in detail, and what are the conditions that comes under each thing also you should know. And if it is a AUBA, how will you manage and what is the presentation, like that you will get questions. So you read again and again the gynec textbook, short textbook, it is nicely given, and if you have any doubts you can ask. Okay, thank you.